All right, so today we are talking about cross-pollination. That's coming up next. Hello everyone, this is Dwayne with Edge of Nowhere Farm, and we're coming to you here today, just a beautiful, beautiful mid-March day here in 2019. So I'm gonna go ahead and link the first video we did on cross-pollination. I'm gonna do that here. We were talking about our peach trees, which is actually right next to Lori now, so on my right-hand side. So what we wanted to do was cover a second way, and a more, I'll say a more modern way of ensuring cross-pollination with different varieties. So what you see behind me here is a double planting. So that would be another way of ensuring cross-pollination in your trees. Now we've talked about the trees behind me here. In fact, I'll link one of those videos here. So what you have behind me here is our piacatum. It's a peach apricot plum hybrid, and our flavor grenade pluot, which is a plum apricot hybrid. So these two trees we've talked about before. The reason why we have them in a double planting is because these two trees are cross-pollinators. So now the flavor grenade pluot also can use cross-pollination, which is why we have it set up with our other pluot and plum varieties. So those are all within about 20 to 30 feet. So this tree gets its cross-pollination from our other plum and pluot varieties, and then the piacatum needs a pollinator or cross-pollinator, and what it needs is the flavor grenade pluot, which is why we have it here. So what I want to show you is exactly how this works, because these two trees are just coming into bloom. So I'm going to have Lori slide in a little bit closer. So the key with cross-pollination is the two trees need to essentially break bud and flower at the same time. These trees have just started doing that. You can see just beautiful, beautiful flowers here on this flavor grenade pluot. It's just really starting to flower. Just a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful tree that's finally starting to come back out of dormancy. So you can see we have flowers here. And what we just noticed today, because we had a real hard cold snap a few days ago, is we just noticed that our piacatum has our flowers blooming as well. So those have broken bud as well. And this is exactly what we want to see, because this ensures cross-pollination between these two trees. So that way we get a pollinator or a bee going from these flowers onto these flowers to ensure we get fruit off of our piacatum. So now, challenges with this. In our last video, we talked about traditional ways of cross-pollination, which is you have your trees spaced about 15 or so feet apart. So you ensure that you're going to have bees going from, or pollinators going from one tree to the next, ensuring cross-pollination. In this case, you have them really close together, so that cross-pollination is definitely going to happen. Now, challenges. Biggest challenge would be you have two trees. Now in this case, they're semi-dwarf trees that can reach anywhere from 15 to 25 feet tall, can get big, massive trunks on them. And of course, they're designed to be sitting there by themselves. So it takes a lot more control. You have to control these trees and their size much more strictly than you would a tree that's standing on its own. So challenge number one would really be controlling the size. You have to control the size of these trees. So when you're going in and pruning, and we showed that in our pruning video on these two trees, you want to make sure that you don't have a lot of crossing branches, because if you don't keep them under control, you're going to get a lot of crossing branches that are going to damage the branches and potentially lead to problems with things like fungal diseases and that type of thing, because the two branches are actually rubbing against each other, and you have the chance for bacteria and fungus to get inside the tree very, very bad. So that would be the first thing. Second thing would be, you know, when you're looking at a tree's roots grow massively underground, much bigger than what you actually see above ground under a lot of fruit trees. So, and especially when you're pruning them. But you have these two trees that are basically competing for nutrition. So typically the tree has plenty of space around it. It's going to pull nutrients from the soil all around it. Well, these two trees are competing against each other. So they're essentially needing more nutrients in this and around the tree itself. So this is a case where you're really going to have to ensure that your fertilizing is on target, because these are going to need a good strong dose of fertilizer on the same rotation. So still do it 3 times a year, but much more critical that you stick to your fertilizing schedule to ensure these guys have enough nutrition in order to put forth growth and of course fruit, which is the goal for all of us. So now benefits. We talked first and foremost about cross-pollination. This really ensures cross-pollination. There's really not any question you're going to have pollinators going between these two trees, so you're going to get cross-pollination. Second advantage would be areas where you might not have as much space in order to put your trees. For those of you who are watching, you've got a smaller backyard, you don't have all this space to work with, this is a great way to get two, well, in this case 5 different varieties, but at least 2 varieties of trees in a smaller space. And you can still get a variety that needs a cross-pollinator. So you don't necessarily have to go with a self-fruitful variety every time. If there's a variety that works well in your zone and in your area that needs a pollinator, you can double plant a tree next to it so it has its pollinator. So you have another advantage there. And then, I don't know, for me, I think they just look cool. You know, it looks like, I don't know, I guess it looks kind of like an accident when it's not, but I think they're just kind of a really cool way of kind of dealing with these trees, and you can kind of treat them sort of like bonsais when you're coming through and deciding how you want to prune and decide how you want them to look. Do you want them to be 2 separate trees? Do you want them to look like a single tree? You got a lot of options with how they look, and you get that cool double trunk. So it's kind of a neat talking point when somebody stops by to take a look at your place. All right, so before I forget, I want to give you an update on another double planting since we're talking about cross-pollination. These 2 trees behind me here, these have finally started flowering here over the last week and are just doing wonderfully. So what we have here is we have a plum tree. So this is our burgundy plum, and our burgundy plum is right next to our plueberry, which is a plum cherry hybrid. And this tree, for the first time, it's been in the ground for about 2 years, for the first time is actually giving us flowers. So we got our fingers crossed. We got our cross-pollinator here that's flowering at the right time with this tree here that's flowering a tremendous amount of flowers. So we're hoping that this double planting gives us some cross-pollination, and maybe we can try some of these plueberries. Fingers crossed. So I just want to thank you for joining us today. You know, if you haven't done so already, hey, subscribe to the channel. You know, we cover a lot of things here. We're going back into fruiting season and fruit tree season, so we'll be spending a lot of time on that. But we do raise livestock as well. You know, if you haven't seen it already, we're going to be going from this 1-acre farm to a 6-acre farm. Well, actually, it's desert land right now that we're going to be turning into a farm. So we'd love it if you would join us. If you haven't seen us on Instagram and Facebook, we're over there. We post content that you won't see here on the YouTube channel. And if you have any questions or comments, hey, leave them in the comment section down below. We really do enjoy interacting with you guys, and that's a great place to do it. So just want to thank you for joining us today and remind you, if we can farm on the edge of nowhere, so can you.